Hello there, gamers. Hope you're having a totally positive day so I can ruin it. I mean, welcome to another installment of Random News of Gaming. I know this one is later than I have ever been in quite a long time, but I hope it will be worth the wait. Although there is so much negative garbage to go over, I kinda just want to half-ass it this time, not gonna lie. All this negativity around the gaming industry is really sad, to be honest. But on the bright side, we have a couple success stories. Sort of. And a whopping 78 games in this video's release list. I kept saying that's a new record for RNG, but watch the next video have even more, dear God. Anyway, let's get into it. A few major companies were in the spotlight last month, with the biggest one probably being Ubisoft. Yeah, more negative Ubisoft news, who would have thought? Believe it or not, the monumental failure of Concord took a backseat to the world of shit Ubisoft is caught up in right now. Their stock has been tanking over time, and according to this article, it was at the same amount it was in December 2014, and if you take inflation into account, it's technically lower. But it's dropped even more since then, and to put it into perspective, their all-time high was at just over €100 in July 2018, and now it's dropping towards 10, and may go under that in the near future. That's insane to think about. A lot of people are claiming Ubisoft doesn't have a lot of time left, and I can't really find an argument against that. All of their games are failures, nobody trusts the company anymore, and they keep getting caught up in so many scandals and controversies that it's becoming kind of cliche to even bother roasting them. Like, I wanted to create an intro for Ubisoft segments like I did with my "Let's all laugh at Activision Blizzard again" thing. But, meh, feels like beating a dead horse. I will continue to report on what happens to them, of course, like the fact that Star Wars Outlaws, you know, what was supposed to be a pretty massive game that sold millions of copies because it's a fucking open world Star Wars game, but take a guess at how much it has allegedly sold in the past month. Ready? About 1 million. Yeah, I don't think that's enough to recoup the cost of something so big with such a massive license deal attached to it. Keep in mind that a lot of people are just going to play it on Ubisoft's subscription service and then probably cancel it. So we won't know the exact numbers, but I can't imagine it making a big difference. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to do last month because my apathy towards this game was too strong. Here's a montage of the best parts of Star Wars Outlaws.
This is like a vast looking game. I think Ubisoft has done a really good job, by the way.
You there?
Never mind.
Look at this place. Be Maragana.
I will lose them, don't worry. Did he go into a wall?
Come on.
Oh, he's struggling, alright. I think he's stuck. Sorry, do you need some help? Maybe this will help you. Not a bug, he's just having some private time. Ow! Oh, he's having a good time, this guy. You okay? There we go.
But I'm worried if that other bitch will see me do it! Fuck you! Oh.
We're pinned down.
No one gets out. Keep shooting. We can do this. The exit. No one moves. Stand your ground. Close in. Hurry. Keep going.
I had to. I did the same for Starfield and Spider-Man 2 after all. It's only fair. But back on topic. Like I said earlier, Ubisoft took the attention away from Concord's failure, and for good reason. And we'll get into Concord later. You gotta remember, Skull and Bones came out earlier this year, and that game might be the second biggest failure of all time. 200 million and years of development down the drain with less than 1 million sales in the first month. And we have what may be another failure around the corner, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Ubisoft actually planned to show this game off at Tokyo Game Show, but then they pulled out of it earlier in the month. Then they had to delay Shadows until February, refund every pre-order, and begin releasing their games on Steam again rather than exclusively on their shitty launcher. We don't know the specifics of why they decided to do this yet, but there's been a lot of drama on the internet regarding this game, and it's... well, you probably already know. If not, check out my RNG video from 2 months ago. But a lot of people are saying this could be the game that determines Ubisoft's future, but I wouldn't go that far. They still regularly publish normie shovelware games like Just Dance and that upcoming Monopoly game, so those might keep them afloat. I would expect a lot of layoffs and restructuring within the next year though. The other big company that's been in a lot of drama lately is PlayStation. Obviously, we talked about the Concord failure early last month, and there is a sort of update on that. That being that the game's total budget was rumored to be around $400 million, according to one insider. That's insane if true. Keep in mind the game only sold around 25,000 copies total, on Steam and PlayStation combined, which gives it about $1 million in revenue. That's it. And remember, they refunded all of it. A lot of people were comparing this failure to the infamous E.T. for the Atari 2600, a game that was partially responsible for the video game crash of 1983. And you gotta keep in mind that according to VG charts, E.T., even back in 1982, actually sold nearly 2 million copies. Concord didn't. This is kind of a tangent, but last month there was a lot of talk about something called toxic positivity, and that it was partially responsible for Concord's failure. Internally, allegedly, none of the developers were allowed to criticize or talk negatively about the development or design or anything about Concord, causing them to have these sort of delusions about the game's future, calling it the future of PlayStation and comparing its potential to Star Wars, which if true, is utterly insane. Externally, a lot of social media personalities are overly positive, or too forgiving, or completely lacking in critical engagement, and their influence only enabled that fake positivity in the development of Concord. But the reason many of these influencers are like this is simple. They want to become insiders. They want to be part of the access media machine, as I call it, that regularly puts out dishonest, fake positive coverage for their own benefit. I want to reiterate this again, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but if you are part of the access machine, if you get to cover a game before it comes out, I do not trust a single word you say. Period. And this whole Concord thing is going to happen again. Ever heard of something called fair games? Fair game dollar? Whatever. Yeah, this is another PlayStation exclusive live service game that looks like it has the same design philosophy as Concord. They've gone pretty quiet about this game since it was announced, but I predict it's going to suffer the same fate. Aside from this, we've heard previously that they have multiple live service games in the works, each one likely costing them tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to produce. And they are all likely to end in disaster if they don't figure out what gamers actually want, and fast, instead of this fictional, quote-unquote, modern audience they keep chasing. Sony did have a major W last month at least, and that was Astrobot. I can't find actual numbers yet, but everything indicates the game is doing pretty well, despite criticisms of being fairly short and derivative of Mario Galaxy, with some people claiming it's a straight ripoff, but I don't think it's close enough to be worried about it. The important thing is that it's simply a fun game.
The game is fun. If it's not fun, why bother?
With fun references for all the Sony ponies out there. It's a pony wonderland. If I ever get a PS5, don't count on it, I would definitely pick it up. Last bit of Sony news is the PS5 Pro, and what a tone-deaf announcement this was. The entire presentation could be summed up as, hey, look at our pretty graphics and allegedly better frame rate on these old games that you already played. rather than showing off a new reason to actually want it. Because once again, there is still lack of real compelling reasons to get a regular PS5, especially if you already have a PC or even if you still have a PS4. In fact, back in May, Sony said that 49 million users were still on PS4, which was half of their user base at the time. Oh yeah, did I mention that the PS5 Pro doesn't come with the stand it's always advertised with, doesn't come with a disc drive, and is $700? Have fun trying to afford this thing if you're outside the US too, holy shit. I mean, if it makes them money, then they may as well do this, I guess, but from a consumer standpoint, this is egregious as hell. If you have a PS5 already, there is no reason to upgrade for this much money. It's a waste, and there's no guarantee that all your games will utilize its features. The only way I could see this being worth it is if you don't have a PS5 yet. And even then, it still has the same problem the PS5 Slim has. The disc drive costs extra, and requires an internet connection to even work the first time. I don't have a PS5 yet, and if I were to get one, it would probably have to be the original $500 physical edition. But they are probably phasing that one out, so I expect that to become the most valuable of these consoles in the long run. Aside from special edition stuff like that 30th anniversary PS1 style console that sold out immediately and is being scalped to high heaven. Because of course. But hey, leave it to the Sony Pony Defense Force to come out and defend the hell out of this thing. Yeah, you know what that means. It's time for the worst take of the month. Yeah, we had some PlayStation Corpo cock gobbler fanboys literally engaging in life ruination by copyright striking other people's channels for roasting them last month, which is like, god damn, these ponies are deranged. But for the actual worst take, this time, it's more about who is making the take specifically. You expect this kind of irrational consumer behavior from the PlayStation fanboys, but you shouldn't expect it from someone whose job it is to be entirely impartial to the gaming industry. You know, like maybe someone who runs a little show called The Game Awards. Jeff Keighley. As soon as this thing was announced, and most people clearly weren't having it, Jeff put it upon himself to go on a tweeting spree running damage control for this console. Jeff, what the fuck are you doing, my guy? This isn't your job. Like, I know, people might say, well, he can have his own personal opinions too, you know? And yes, but he kind of signed his responsibility not to show his bias when he decided to do this whole Game Awards thing, didn't he? I talked about this a little bit back in my video about the Game Awards back in July, where I mentioned that a few of the people involved in the quote-unquote real Game Awards are strongly biased towards Nintendo. And that will trickle into some of the audience looking for confirmation bias. You have to commit to impartiality if you want to be taken seriously for something like this. And Jeff has been failing at that for quite a while, usually more subtly. But this time, he has gone full mask off pony.
It's time to stop!
Or delete your show. We'd be better off without it anyway. So what's Xbox been up to? Let's see. What do I got written down? Never mind. What's Nintendo been up to? Well, they've updated their content guidelines so that they can allegedly take down any content they find inappropriate or immoral. Okay. They've also been issuing copyright strikes to those using emulators of their games on YouTube. In a totally unrelated note, and really for no reason whatsoever, I have unlisted some of my streams. Please understand. They also appear to have gotten the Ryujinx Switch emulator to cease operations. Still a developing story, as we don't have any specified reason yet, so we'll likely see what really happened later. But the big news regarding Nintendo last month was that they were actually going forward with legal action against Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworld, for patent infringement. I remember saying that they likely don't have a case against Palworld back when it came out, but it seems they pulled some sort of dirty trick to get game mechanic patents approved related to Pokemon back in 2023. So now they might actually have a case and win, which is a real scummy move, holy shit. And from what I've heard, copyright law in Japan is even more backwards and unfit for cause than ours here in the States. For example, in Japan, it was actually made illegal to mod consoles and games. In addition, game companies have to police mods because the contents of game mods are the legal responsibility of the company that made the game, rather than the fan in their basement who made the mod. It's absurd. I missed this news back in the day, so this might explain why the Japanese companies are so anti-mod lately, like Capcom and Bandai Namco earlier this year. On the other hand, Nintendo also had a big W last month with the release of The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which you can see me flailing around with in the background here. There are rumors floating around that it's selling better than many other recent AAA games by an absurdly high factor, but, you know, rumors. It will be interesting to see how the numbers stack up by the end of the year though, considering how many giant AAA flops there have been lately. Let's move on to last month in localization. First, we gotta talk about Dragon Quest III once again because it's being censored quite hard in multiple ways. And the reason why we're talking about it in this segment is because the localization and Western branch of Square Enix may be the ones responsible for it. According to a translation of this interview with Yuji Horii, it was changed due to mostly influence from Westerners, as well as modern age rating standards. Keep in mind there is some discrepancy on the accuracy of this translation of this interview going around, which could just be damage control, and the only evidence they have for this claim is one singular mistranslated word so far. And I don't know any Japanese, so I can't say whether or not it's accurate. More on that later. But this censorship is just inexcusable. A lot of people are disappointed in these changes because it disrespects Akira Toriyama's work, including a lot of people in Japan, allegedly. Some are claiming these are just Westerners using Google Translate or whatever, but who knows with things like this. One interesting development is that this interview is being deleted now, which is sus as hell. Damage control much? There's more cultural war bullshit attached to this story, but I'm not going to get into that. One thing I kinda want to do is learn some Japanese, and if people are interested, maybe we can do a little bit of that on stream one day. Nihon Falcom has teamed up with an AI translator in Japan for Kai no Kiseki. Sounds big, right? Well, don't get too excited just yet, because the team behind the AI are doing this as a showcase of how the AI works, using Kai no Kiseki as an example. A test subject, if you will. It's probably still going to get localized by NISA eventually, but it's quite the interesting thing to see happen in an official capacity like this. Now, the next two stories are only tangentially related to localization, but another low-key controversy popped up regarding a fan translation of Ciel no Surge, a Vita visual novel in the Tonelico or Exapico universe that acts as a prequel to the entire series. And due to the game's mechanics and features, bringing it over to other systems such as PC in order to make a straight translation patch was virtually impossible. It took years of dedicated tinkering and modding to get this to work, so seeing it get involved in some really dumb and insignificant non-controversy is kind of disheartening to see take place. Basically, the original game treats the player as male, for the simple reason that it's the expected target audience in Japan specifically. Over here in the English-speaking world, and like 12 years later, there's plenty of female fans of this series, so they chose to make the game refer to the player neutrally rather than male. Some twatter warriors had a problem with this, even though they probably wouldn't have played it anyway. As for me, I do like this series, but probably won't play it due to it being mainly a long visual novel. But if I was going to, I'd have been mixed on this decision, because my default position is always to translate as accurately as possible. The best possible outcome would have been to allow you to choose your gender at the beginning, but I wouldn't want to ask something like that without knowing how much work that would actually take to implement for people who are doing this all for free. Remember that. And remember that when you decide to go on a tirade about the people working on this who, by the way, are much bigger fans of this series than you are. I'm in their community myself and can say without a doubt that the lead guy on this project is the biggest contributor to this series in the West by far. So look forward to it when it's finished and comes out, hopefully later this year. Another good thing from the fan translation world is that the RPG The Slayers from 1994 finally has its first fan translation, so go check that out if you're interested. Moving on, we have some quick stuff to go over. TakeThis.org. If you haven't heard of them, they were a government-funded group to put out literal propaganda against gamers. Well, they lost funding this year. Good. Fuck off. Get the hell out. Nobody asked for this. They tried to put on a pity party to get some crowdfunding money instead, and it fucking worked. It actually worked. Are you people brain dead? Why would you fund this? God damn, we are so fucked if so many people still fall for parasite snake oil salesmen like this. Annapurna Interactive is in a world of shit right now, as pretty much their entire staff resigned. If I'm understanding this right, many of the staff wanted to create an independent publishing arm, but since negotiations failed, they all quit. And the person in charge, Megan Ellison, is a nepotism hire that nobody likes. Sounds crazy. I don't know all the details right now based on the articles I've seen, so feel free to update me. Ready to laugh at Activision Blizzard again? Well, pump the brakes, because this isn't really something to laugh at. Microsoft lays off another 650 employees, much of which were in the Activision Blizzard acquisition, followed by Activision themselves laying off 400 more. Damn, this company is getting gutted. Who knows if this will result in an improvement in their games, but we'll see, I guess. The EU is going after EA, Epic Games, Roblox, and more over, quote, purposefully tricking customers and more underhanded tactics to get money out of unsuspecting customers, especially kids. Probably government overreach once again, because if you can't control yourself over these things and don't actually parent your kids, you deserve to lose that money. So tired of this shit. But these companies are scummy, to be fair. Both can be true. Valve is also caught up in an antitrust lawsuit, which I missed last month, that alleges Steam is a platform monopolist and keeps game prices high to push out competition. Anyone who uses Steam and has ever experienced the Steam summer sale knows this is bullshit, but okay. More recently, Steam updated their terms of service and removed something from their agreement called arbitration, which is basically a process that replaces the court system for resolving conflicts between the company and the user. The prevailing sentiment across the internet is that things like this are very bad for the consumer because it's a violation of consumer rights, and possibly a breach of the 7th Amendment in some cases. Check out a YouTuber called Louis Rossman if you want to learn more about this. I found out about this story via this video here. But yeah, Valve removed this from Steam. I guess it cost them more money than allowing users to take them to court. Otherwise, I can't see any motivation for a company to do this, but good for us, right? Lastly, do you guys remember when the Unity engine went batshit insane? Tried to charge developers per customer install of each game, among other terrible terms and conditions and all that, causing developers to abandon them in favor of other engines. Well, one of those engines called Godot stepped in it at the end of the month by chiming into the culture war on a topic they had literally nothing to do with right when they were at the peak of their game. Why in the ever-loving fuck would you do that? You make a fucking series of ones and zeros for fucking video games. Stop. But no, they decided to go full retard and start blocking people, calling them out on being dumb, including some developers who were asking them to address actual concerns that they were having with development. Great job. They did put out a weak apology later on, while continuing to put the blame on everyone else except themselves. This is likely another one of those problems the game industry has with terrible community managers, and the solution seems simple, but nobody seems to have the balls to do it. Get their childish behavior under control, or just fire them. That wraps up the news topics. We also have a few showcases to go over. There was PAX West, but I don't think much news came out of that. The main draw of this event was usually just to give people hands-on time with upcoming games that were already announced. Obviously, there was the PS5 Pro technical presentation on the 10th, which we talked about earlier. There were a bunch of indie showcases including Indie Mania, a 3-day event on September 12th through the 14th, 6-1 Indie Showcase on September 19th, and the Game Development Championships Best Indie Games Awards on September 20th, which wasn't really a showcase, just a small-time award show that I know nothing about. On September 24th, we had a few notable things, including Level 5 Vision 2024, a showcase of Japanese games targeted towards kids, Sonic Central, which was all Sonic stuff with a big emphasis on Shadow, and then the PlayStation State of Play. I reacted to the Sonic and PlayStation events live on stream, so you can check that out if you want. But one of the most notable things announced was Ghost of Yotei, a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. That stirred up some controversy on the internet due to the choice of lead voice actor, someone who is too much of an activist for people to trust in this role. But also, right after this game was announced, Ubisoft delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows, which was some interesting timing to say the least. I wonder if they decided to announce Ghost of Yotei now, specifically because of the drama with Assassin's Creed. Next was the Tokyo Game Show on September 26th, which always has a bunch of new stuff from Japan to show off. But also Xbox had a large presence there, including a dedicated showcase of their own. Good luck. Last, and certainly least, there was a mobile gaming show, also on the 26th, featuring some companies I'd rather see die. If for some reason you wanted to watch this thing, or any of the other showcases here, I'll have links in the description. Now, onto the releases. Oh god, here we go. I'm gonna try to get through this quickly if you don't mind. Starting with Battle Gem Ponies on September 2nd, a 2D magical pony turn-based Pokemon-like RPG that released on itch.io, not on Steam yet, so keep that in mind. Sumerian 6 on September 2nd, a top-down tactics game where you use magic and all sorts of weird stuff to defeat the Nazis. Bakeru on September 3rd, a 3D action platformer inspired by Japanese stuff and culture and stuff. The Casting of Frank Stone on September 3rd, a horror story game kinda like Until Dawn, but set in the world of Dead by Daylight. People seem to be mixed on it though. Star Trucker on September 3rd, one of those trucking simulators, but this time in space. Can't go wrong there. Age of Mythology Retold on September 4th, a remake of the classic real-time strategy game, a great one to start with if you're unfamiliar with the genre. Just avoid the DLC and wait for a sale because what the fuck is this shit? Ale and Tale Tavern on September 5th, a fantasy tavern management simulator with adventure and exploration elements and co-op. CATO Buttered Cat on September 5th, a puzzle platformer featuring a cat and a slice of super-powered butter toast. Gimmick 2 on September 5th, an old-school styled platformer that looks inspired by Kirby and features music by David Wise. Nice. Selfloss on September 5th, a dark fantasy puzzle-solving adventure game inspired by Slavic folklore. Mirage Feathers on September 6th, a sprite-based on-rails 3D shooter with some cute characters and some very high praise so far. Perennial Order on September 6th, an action RPG with boss rushes and Souls-like design for all you tryhards out there. Roots of Yggdrasil came out of early access on September 6th, a Nordic-inspired town builder with deck-building mechanics. Sounds like a great way for RNGs to cause all sorts of disasters. What the Car on September 9th, a goofy-ass driving and physics-based cartoony game where you can do all sorts of wacky shit. Yars Rising on September 9th, a cyberpunk, colorful anime-styled Metroidvania. Yes, I do keep including these to remind myself to continue my Metroidvania backlog. Elsie on September 10th, a colorful 2D roguelite action platformer. Yep, another one. Hive Jump 2 Survivors on September 10th, another reverse bullet hell roguelite in the vein of, well, you probably know by now. I Am Your Beast on September 10th, a fast-paced shooter with some crazy movement and parkour kills. Rugrats Adventures in Gameland on September 10th. If you want some nostalgia, here you go. It's a platformer in the style of NES games with its own 8-bit mode. Satisfactory came out of early access on September 10th, a 3D factory simulator and management game that looks like an epic crack addiction, and I will probably lose a month of my life to it. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop on September 11th. Yeah, if you were a fan or missed out on the original, you can always pick this up. Confirmed to not be censored. It's a miracle. And it seems the game journalists are refusing to cover it. Amedama came out of early access on September 12th, a non-linear side-scrolling 2.5D action game. Caravan Sandwich on September 12th, a hipstery exploration, driving, and light platforming game. Death Sprint 66 on September 12th, a running, racing, and combat game. Beat your opponents or beat your opponents. The choice is yours. Evo Tinction on September 12th, a futuristic dystopian stealth game that may be an alternative for anyone jonesing for a new Deus Ex game. Garden Witch Life on September 12th, another one of those magical farming and life sims, though it seems it's not being received as well. Hollow Body on September 12th, a third-person survival horror game, perfect for the spooky season. Nano Apostle on September 12th, a boss rush action RPG where you play as a little girl who can control nanomachines, son. Pico Park 2 on September 12th, a casual puzzle platformer where you control up to 8 characters, or you control one of them while your friends control the others in co-op. Wild Bastards on September 12th, a roguelite first-person strategy shooter with some flashy designs. Edge of Sanity on September 13th, a horror game where you fight to survive and fight the madness creeping into your mind. Foul Damage on September 13th, a precision puzzle platformer where you play as an egg and try not to get cracked. Storm Edge on September 13th, another top-down action roguelite. Man, there are a lot of these. Inotria, The Last Song on September 16th, your Souls Like of the Month, you're welcome. Enjoy the old Italian style in spite of some of the problems the game appears to have. Hands of Necromancy 2 on September 16th, a dark fantasy first-person boomer shooter. Mellowbot, A Last Song on September 16th, a casual game where you play as a robot and do rhythm-based puzzles to restore harmony. Starstruck, Hands of Time on September 16th, another rhythm game, but this time in a wacky Japan-inspired cartoon world with time travel and random shit. Final Fantasy XVI got its PC port on the 17th in case you missed it. Too bad it has de novo. Marco, Beyond Brave on September 17th, another Metroidvania featuring a funny mustachioed Slavic guy. The Plucky Squire on September 17th, an innovative-looking 3D platformer where you play as 2D picture book characters. Keylocker, turn-based cyberpunk action on September 18th, a turn-based cyberpunk RPG with rhythm elements. UFO 50 on September 18th, a collection of retro-inspired minigames for you and your friends to piss each other off with. Beyond Shadowgate on September 19th, a point-and-click adventure game that's a sequel to the NES Shadowgate that's been shelved for over 30 years. Boomers rejoice. Copycat on September 19th, one of those cat simulators, although with a more emotional story. Expect to get sad. Cricket, Jay's Really Peculiar Game on the 19th, another turn-based JRPG that looks inspired by Earthbound. Fast Penguin on September 19th, a silly party racing game about silly penguins. Seems to have some netcode issues and other problems at the moment though. Numata on September 19th, another survival horror game for spooky season, though this one appears to need more time in the oven as of now. Project Anno's Ark on September 19th, a weeby tactical RPG with roguelite elements. Toy Tactics came out of early access on September 19th, a real-time tactics game with physics-based mechanics. Frostpunk 2 on September 20th, a follow-up to the highly acclaimed city-building survival game from several years ago. The Karate Kid Street Rumble on September 20th, a classic 2D beat-em-up inspired by the Karate Kid series. It's a Game Mill game though, so look into it first. Yeah, that company. Maiden Cops on September 23rd, a retro-inspired beat-em-up featuring 3 different lovely lady cops and having some suggestive fun with the criminals of the city. You know you want to. Tiny Glade on September 23rd, a small-scale builder that allows you to get really intricate with the details. I like the look of this and may play it myself. Ara History Untold on September 24th, Xbox Game Studios' answer to the 4X strategy genre, though people seem to be disappointed with it currently for one reason or another. Aura of Worlds on September 24th, a roguelite Metroidvania-style 2D game, or Roguevania, the best of both worlds I guess. Beyond Galaxyland on September 24th, a sci-fi adventure RPG with exploration and turn-based combat. Star Wars meets Final Fantasy, they say. You are a bold one. Bloomtown, A Different Story on September 24th, another RPG that's Earthbound inspired in a 1960s Americana setting. Dark Sky on September 24th, a sci-fi adventure RPG with deck building mechanics. Don't let RNG probe you. Echo Point Nova on September 24th, a first-person shooter with a heavy emphasis on exploration and environmental interaction. Got some really positive reviews right now. Halls of Torment came out of early access on September 24th, another horde bullet hell roguelite with what looks like a Diablo-inspired style. Ninth Dawn Remake on September 25th. Action RPG, exploration, collect-a-thon, lots of fun stuff in this ground-up remake of a classic indie game from 2012. Dungeon Tycoon on September 25th. A Minecrafty-style dungeon management and tower defense sim. Sounds addicting as hell. I love destroying those pesky heroes. Iron Meat on September 25th. A run-and-gun platformer inspired by classics like Contra, with a lot of violence. Alruna and the Necro-Industrialists on September 26th, a retro-style Metroidvania featuring a sequence-breaking and a dummy-thick plant girl as the main character. G.I. Joe Wrath of Cobra on September 26th, an arcade-style beat-em-up for anyone who still clings on to this old series. Mecha Bellum came out of early access on September 26th, a tactical mech auto-battler war game. Big brain time. Night Slashers Remake on September 26th, a remake of a niche beat-em-up game, though people are saying the animations aren't so great compared to the original. Raven's Watch came out of early access on September 26th, yet another action roguelite with co-op. How many of these do we have now? Shadows of Doubt came out of early access on September 26th, an immersive noir detective sim set in a futuristic city. The Nameless Slay Dragon on September 26th, a turn-based RPG with multiple endings and stuff, but what's the deal with that name? Gotta be one of the worst game titles I've ever seen, but the game seems to be good, so I guess I'll let it slide. Dwarven Realms came out of early access on September 27th, an action RPG with a massive skill tree and tons of enemies to fight at a time. Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports on September 27th, a party sports game featuring all your favorite boomer cartoon characters. Just be wary, it's another Game Mill title. Once More on September 27th, a casual puzzle game where you play as a little marshmallow trying to sandwich himself between two crackers. Rey Natis on September 27th, an edgy anime action game with some very colorful design. People are saying it's short for the $60 price tag though. Economics on September 30th, a roguelite city builder featuring gnomes, and using your city to help explore the mysterious underground caves and stuff. Rogue Waters on September 30th, a pirate-themed roguelite tactics RPG. The struggle for booty is never ending. The Devil is in the Details on September 30th, a psychological horror game where you're trapped in hell and have to outwit the devil and survive all the perils to escape. Lastly, finally, we have Zoocosis on September 30th, another horror game set in a zoo full of mutant animals. Seems to need some work still, but the idea is terrifying, not gonna lie. And there's the end of it, holy shit. Hope you guys found something you may like. If you do, let me know because this took forever to get done. I do think we are truly spoiled as gamers despite all of these major companies shitting the bed constantly. Perpetually. Relentlessly. I really don't look forward to talking about some of these stories because it just gets discouraging. But anyway, don't forget to check out my top 10 moments in The Legend of Zelda that I recently made, and look forward to the eventual follow-up, top 10 worst moments in the series. Eventually. Probably not until after I get a new PC because holy shit, it screams and cries at me like a little bitch every time I try to work on a video like that now. I also have recently applied for monetization, so look forward to your favorite thing in the world coming soon, ads. Always remember to turn off that pesky ad block. Nah, just kidding, I don't care if you do. Anyway, don't forget to leave a like if you liked the video or dislike it if you're salty about Ubislop. Leave a comment on what you think of any of this news/drama/shit show. Subscribe for more nonsense from me. Share the video around if there's anyone you know that may be interested in anything in the video, especially the release list. Also follow my Steam curator if you want a one-stop spot that keeps track of every game I cover on the channel. Check out my other videos such as past RNGs, top 10s, Smash Bros videos, or anything else that tickles your pickle. Follow me on the X Twitter even though I post nothing, or catch me on Rumble or Odyssey. And as always with this slop-flopping plop of glop of an industry, have high standards, low expectations.